Hello everyone. Um, Thanks for coming back. I had to take a short break because I had some real life stuff that I had to take care of before continuing to record more videos for about Neurographica and teaching you more about Neurographica. So today we're talking more about shapes. So remember in the first video I mentioned that with just the neural lines and the circles, you can actually make neurographic art, but I did not explain anything about what each shape means and all that. Okay, so actually there are very few shapes you can use in Neurographica practice. The most widely used ones are circles because you can actually use it to represent a whole lot of things. So today we are going to be talking not around, about shapes in Neurographica. In particular, circles, squares, triangles, and the star shape. I will give you a general idea of what they mean and what they can be used for, so you can use them in your own neurographic artwork and algorithms. Okay, so first off, we will start with a circle. Okay, as you all know, a circle in Neurographica doesn't have to be perfectly round. So in this case, and if it's not round enough, just keep doing this until it looks sort of round. Okay? And it doesn't have to be perfect. And as you know, in Neurographica, if you need something to be perfect, actually not just Neurographica, even in art therapy, if something needs to be perfect, like in your view, like the circle that you're drawing needs to be perfect, there's meaning behind it. So it's up to you to search for why do you need the circle to be perfect, to look perfect for you. Okay? But generally speaking, as long as the circle looks circular, looks round, it's good enough. Obviously, technically speaking, an imperfect circle is actually an oval, and there are no ovals in Neurographic. So if you drew something that looks like an oval, please make sure you make it look more circular. By whatever means necessary, attenuating it, making it look bigger, darken the outlines, or whatever. Like if you can draw a circle that looks somewhat like this, or even better, it's good enough. As long as it doesn't look like, this obviously. Okay, if you drew something like this, then you gotta do something to make it circular, like maybe draw several circles inside or something like that. Okay, and then obviously you have to do your roundings. So for obvious reasons, not obvious reasons, because we can't. I tend to draw this parallel a lot, roundings and feng shui, because in feng shui, pointy objects, it's a no. Like, if you have any pointy objects pointing towards you, you have to do something to like block it, like maybe some pom-poms or something, to block it. But in Neurographica, if you have pointy shapes, we haven't get to any pointy shapes yet, but later we will. You have to round them, and then the points, you have to connect them to something, okay? Like this, and then you gotta round them. You'll see later. That's why you need to do rounding. Okay, when you do rounding, it it smooths things out. And when you smooth things out, it just feels better. And that's what Neurographica is all about your mind's perception of your artwork that you're drawing. And your artwork actually means something to you via metaphorical meaning. So the metaphorical meaning of circles is that it is something eternal, it is something wholesome, it's a whole thing, like it's whole, it's inviting, similar objectives, well-rounded, that it's graceful, it's feminine, it's warm, it's comforting, it's inviting, and it could be the results of a fruit of some endeavor, that it's loving, it's infinite unity of everything, it's enduring. You can combine stuff inside the circle, as in it's evident here, or when you have many neurographic lines crisscrossing each other, like in this case, and then you just do rounding. You put a circle around it, and it makes you feel much better, because in Neurographica, each intersecting line is a conflict. So apart from rounding out the conflict, if you put a circle around it, it makes everything better. So it's telling your brain that everything's okay, everything is safe. At this moment that you're drawing this, everything is okay, everything is safe. You are safe. And that's why in Neurographica, you use a lot of circles. We use a lot of circles. Because a circle is wholesome, it's comforting, like I mentioned earlier. And you can use it to combine stuff, like this. Or you can draw many, many circles and the bigger circles around it. Okay? There are algorithms out there created by other instructors that actually uses this. Okay? And in the first lesson, I've also mentioned that you can actually, if you didn't know anything about Neurographica, all you did was draw circles in your entire page. Like, example, these are the bleed through, so you can just ignore it. Like if I draw circles like that, big ones, small ones, like this, even circles inside circles, tiny circles, big circles, and then you round them after that. After you're all done with filling your entire page with circles, you will feel much better after that, and then especially after coloring. Yeah, I will talk a little bit about it. Actually, why not now? We're coloring. Coloring, as some of you may know, I have a little bit of art therapy training. So when you color, the act of doing this, especially with a color pencil, the sound, the feel of it, it makes you feel really good. Again, it's telling your mind, your perception, that everything is okay, that it's safe. Okay, so to continue with what the meaning of a circle, other than combining things, it also serves to keep things in or out. It also serves as a form of connection, protection. It also means community, or the original perfection, like as you might have noticed, like anything that spins is circular. Most of the planets are more or less circular. Okay, it also means peaceful. A circle, when you look at a circle, it feels peaceful. And also in art therapy, in Neurographica, and as well as mandalas, a circle represents the self. So in somebody, let's say if somebody's recovering from some kind of mental trauma or whatever trauma or even sickness, and they start drawing art, and in their art you see a lot of circles or even just one circle, it means that healing is happening. Okay? Alright, so we're moving on to the next shape now. The next shape is a square or a quadrangle. Okay? Now, a square, a quadrangle, a rectangle, try not to draw rectangles. As long as a shape looks like a square, in this case, it looks more or less like a square, it's okay. Because a rectangle is not very much used in Neurographica, in fact almost never, like an oval. So if it looks like a rectangle, make it look more like a square, like in the case of a circle. You notice the pattern there, it's something must be equal. Because when something looks equal on all sides, or feels equal on all sides, or look kind of sort of equals, it's comforting for your brain. Okay, now with squares and quadrangles, now squares can be big or small. Okay, can be like that. And you can do the same thing like, what you do in circles, you can just keep doing it until it looks like a square. Alright, so in this case, squares and triangles are a little bit problematic in a way that because they have sharp pointy corners. So when you use them, you have to round them like that. Okay. And not only that, you have a pointy corner here, 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 and here. You have to draw a neurographic line connecting that corner to something. In this case, to another shape. Now, you don't have to connect it to this shape. You could have drawn the line out like that to the edge of the paper. It's still considered a connection, and then you have to do all your necessary roundings. Okay, any intersection should be rounded. Remember, they mean conflict. So you're rounding them out, and then for this, like if there's nothing, even if let's say you have some neurographic lines here. Now I'm just anyhow drawing neurographic lines, so just to show you, you can connect the corners to a neurographic line and do the necessary rounding. And if you like, you can also do this. Okay, and then you have to do your necessary roundings. Okay? So in this case, it can be anything. It could be like this. Obviously, you can add more lines if you're just doing neurographic art. If you're just doing Neuroart and not any algorithm, so you can do more. Alright? So now, what does a square mean? A square is used in cases where you want to mean, you want something there, like a resource or a fruit of your tree. Because so far we've only done like 2 tree algorithms to be stable. Something familiar, something trusted, something that's orderly, that it's predictable, that is earthbound. Well, in a manner of speaking, earthbound. Mostly stability, familiarity, predictable, trustworthy, you know. And a square is also comforting, and it's solid, it's secure, it's peaceful, it's equality, it's familiar, it's stable, it's reassuring, it's strict and rigid. Okay, now I've been told that in Buddhism, there's a symbolism in Buddhism where, oops, wrong side. There's you have a circle, and then you have a square inside. Okay. It means it's earthbound, eternal, and whole, and represents the relationship between the human and the divine. You can do this, that's fine. And I can actually see this happening in some of the other algorithms, like the true and the score. So the true algorithm, as mentioned in my about write-up, is about assistance. No, sorry, not assistant. It's about finding hidden resources. So in the true algorithm, there may be cases where you start a resource out as a square, but then later on feel like, well, maybe it's going to be a circle. Then you draw a circle around it. Same thing with score. Score is an algorithm that's an adaptation from NLP. You can look that up. Is an actual acronym that's used in NLP. With score is the same thing. Like when you first started out drawing, it could be a freeform shape, it could be a circle, be a square, and then eventually, as you're going through the whole process, you might feel like, well, oh, this becomes a square. You feel like it's going to become a square. And this can stay a circle, and this maybe becomes a circle. Okay, so this is a summary of what the commonly used shapes are. So just as a rule of thumb, a circle can be used to represent anything. A circle can be used to represent anything. A square is used to represent something that's more stable. For example, if you want a more stable financial resource, then you would draw a square as one of the fruits or one of the resources. Okay? Alright. Next. I think I would use another piece of paper. That's pretty bad. Next, the triangle. Alright. Now, as you can see, the triangle has 3 sharp edges. So when you use a triangle in any of your Neuroart or Neurographica algorithm, you have to remember to treat the corners of the triangle like you would do in a square. Okay, as in you have to connect them. And there should be no hanging edges. No hanging or floating edges. In Neurographica, you cannot have things like this. You draw a circle, and then you have a floating circle or a floating square inside. No, they have to be connected somehow. Either with another shape or with neurographic lines. Okay? You cannot have something left floating. Have something be left floating. So in this case, a triangle. Now, a triangle is supposed to be the most unstable shape of all the shapes in Neurographica because of how it depends on how you draw it, because it can mean going up, coming down, going towards the future or going towards the past. I think it's safe to say if you're drawing a triangle, in this case is because I have it pointing straight up, it's not pointing anywhere, it's a bit more stable. If I were to draw my triangle this way, it means I want the energy of whatever is here that I'm going to name be decreasing. And in most of my neurographic algorithm art, I always draw the triangle this way. Okay? I tend to always draw the triangle this way. Because remember, in Neurographica, left means the past. The left of your page means the past. Now, unless you have already predetermined before you started drawing that the left is the future and the right is the past, then you have to flip everything. So in this case, we're talking about left being the past and the right being the future. I've talked about a lot of this in like either the first or the second video, I can't remember. So let's assume that we're going to say the left is the past and the right is the future, and the bottom is also the past and the top is the future. Think of the triangle as an arrow. So you want the triangle to be always leaning towards the right. So it's going up and towards the future. Now, unless the triangle you're drawing means anger and you want to reduce the anger, then you would draw the triangle pointing down. Like say if you have a problem with anger management, and say in the next year or in the future you wanted to reprogram your brain. I will cover this in a future future video about how you can draw Neuroart using all these metaphorical meanings to quote-unquote reprogram your brain in a way. You're not actually doing any reprogramming, but like I explained before, you're using the law of attraction and art by thinking about it all the time to reprogram your brain, and you might have to do this many times to get it to stick. Alright, so I'll cover this in a future video, promise. So, but other than that, just remember, if you're ever using a triangle, remember that as a rule of thumb, it is used as like an arrow. So the meaning of a triangle represents connection between the human and the divine. Think of triangles as arrows, so they're an unstable shape depending on how you draw them. So be careful how you draw them. Okay, one thing for sure, a triangle also means action. Okay, so if you have something that you drew in your Neuroart that you want something to happen, like some action, like to increase, then you will put a triangle there. That's part of a bit part of your brain reprogramming. Okay? And it also has the meaning of aggression, progression, direction, and purpose. So obviously, of all the three shapes we've talked so far, triangle, in a manner of speaking, also means energy and power, because it is the power of direction, a power of action. Okay, you give energy in a piece of Neuroart to give it direction and energy and power to go in a certain direction. Now, having said that, let me just put a little piece of information out there. In Feng Shui, if you want to increase the energy of any place, you put a triangle in there. Shape. They use triangles to increase the energy of a place. Okay? Again, because it's unstable, use it sparingly, because you could overpower the place and make you feel really uncomfortable. That's in Feng Shui. Okay? In Chinese culture, especially in Singapore, we don't actually do a lot of that, but quite a lot of people believe in the art of Feng Shui. Definitely. And it, obviously, because it came from the Chinese side, Chinese culture. Feng Shui is a Chinese culture thing that only ancient emperors used to do it for their palaces in China, and that's how it came about. And no commoner used it back then in ancient history. Now people are using it. Okay? So that's a triangle. And obviously now, I'm not going to leave this like that, because I don't want you to say, oh yeah, it's okay to have floating. So remember to connect the triangle to the edges of the paper or to another shape or lines. Alright? And then you have to do your rounding. Okay, and now we come to one shape which we almost never use in most of the algorithm, and that's a freeform shape. I've mentioned before, a freeform shape can be anything. Okay, can be like this, can be like this. Okay, could be really sharp. It's considered a freeform shape. Okay, now if you notice, this is okay, this is a bit more energetic, and this is really emotional energetic because of all the point. Now in Neurographica, we have a algorithm to help us dissipate heavy emotional feelings, we call it a cathartic release, where we'll teach you how to diffuse things like that, how a shape like this could be created and how it can be diffused, which I will not be covering because we're not allowed to release the algorithm for presentation purposes. We're kind of only allowed to release like 3 algorithms for general consumption for presentation purposes, to give people a taste of what Neurographica is. That's the tree algorithm, the shamanic rain, and the neural lotus. At some point I'll get to one of them. Okay, partly because I'm not sure which one yet, and I gotta reconfirm if I can actually do that. So in any case, let's get back to this. So like I mentioned before, these shapes in particular only are used during coaching for either true or score algorithm, and also during the cathartic release algorithms that we use. Otherwise, you generally do not use any of the shapes in the tree algorithm, or even in shamanic green, or neurolotus, or any reprogramming neurographic art that you would do, because they're free forms. And free forms because it's usually because, like in the case of either score or true algorithm, freeform shapes are looked upon as something that you're still not sure what is it about. It's like a baby, still malleable and still changing. Okay, except for if you're doing cathartic release, that's different. That's spiky energy, like too much energy that you want to release and rebalance yourself. That's why they have that algorithm. Alright? And last but not least is the sun or the star shape. So in some of my neurographic artwork, you would see, or in some other people's neurographic artwork, not just mine, you would sometimes see, like, people have a circle and then they drew like, shape like this. Okay, and obviously it's rounded, but for time purposes, I'm not gonna round everything, just so you know, or people would have, like that. The general that general shape of like a star, but I haven't seen anybody who actually did this. I know of one algorithm that does this, but I don't use it. I haven't been taught how that algorithm. It's more of a metaphysical, I was told. Like, you would draw a star and draw a line towards it, and then in between, I'm sure you have to put something around it and all that. But I don't have access to that algorithm. But in general, when you have a star or a sun-like shape, you're trying to draw attention to it. So use it sparingly. Okay, later in the video, I'll show you an example of the sun-like shape. Maybe two examples. Okay, you've seen me done one of them in the tree. I think it's the wish tree algorithm. That there's a sunlight. I'll show you the picture later. So I'll talk more. I will talk a little about it now, and then I'll show you examples. Okay. Usually, when you draw a shape like this, it's to draw attention to it. You want either your attention, you want other people's attention towards whatever this thing was that you have drawn. Okay? So it is an energetic symbol, and it thus represents the need for attention. And you can actually, what usually happens is, it may not happen the first time you draw this. What usually happens is people usually use it as a fixation. So like, you might have things like, something like this, and then you have lines going through them, for whatever reason, your Neuroart, and then during your fixation phase, you say, oh, I feel that this is really important. This shape here is really important to me, so I'm going to do a sun-like shape. Okay. And that's how it happens. Nobody does it on the first try. Or I haven't seen anybody who does it on the first try. So use the sun and the star shape extremely sparingly, because it should be the case of where you are trying to draw attention to that shape or that resource or that goal. Okay? And not the case where you want them to be everywhere and it's like, what are you trying to do? Like, everything is equally important or something. So it depends on your meaning. It could be the case where, yeah, every one of your shapes becomes a star, but then you would really have to sit down and ask yourself, what does it mean when I do that? What do I want it to mean? What's the story that it's trying to tell me? So I remember in 2 videos I've mentioned multiple times that after you're done with your neurographic art, you should always ask yourself, what's the story your art is trying to tell you? Okay? So these are the basic shapes for neurograph. Well, these aren't actually basic. The basics is the neural lines and the circle. A circle can represent everything. With the square and the triangle and the sun or star shape, you have to be a bit more careful. So now I'm going to show you an example. Okay, this is a neuro tree I drew like last week because they wanted, the Neurographica America was asking me for more artwork, and me being a fresh graduate of Neurographica don't have actually that many artwork that I feel that show worthy, so I had to take 2 weeks off to like turn out more artwork. And this was one of the pieces that I did, and you can see the sun star shape here. Okay, the sun star shape for the most important goal. You can see my fixations, okay, and of course you can also see my field lines. Alright, you can see a triangle here. You can see a square here. As you see, I don't use a lot of triangles and squares, mostly circles, because circles are the safest. Or whenever, basically a rule of thumb you should use, whenever in doubt of what shape to use for your resource or your fruits or whatever you're going to be drawing to represent something, the circle is the safest thing that you can ever use to represent that thing that you're not sure what shape to use for. Whenever in doubt, use a circle. That's the simplest rule of thumb. So today there won't be any art demo because I'm trying to make this short. You've got quite a few. You have like 2-3 algorithms you can work on, and I have to work on my own algorithms. Like, designing an algorithm isn't an easy thing. I could reuse another tree algorithm. I could produce another tree algorithm and draw it. But I think by now you would want to see something else other than a tree algorithm. So I would be working on another new piece of a new Neurographica algorithm to show you in the next video. Okay, as far as time is concerned, it's like, yeah, each of these videos are taking like a lot of time, so much so that I don't have time to design new algorithms. So I'm going to like dial the so that way I don't run out of topics to show everyone and let you experience Neurographica. At the same time, I can design new algorithms that every one of you who are tuning in can use. Okay? Alright, so today's drawing example is this. It's a tree tutorial done, like I said, this was done in a different style than what you've seen. Oh yeah, I was going to show you another one. Yeah, this picture. You've seen this one. It's one of the examples, and the sun or the star is down here. It's used as an integration tool. Okay, but at the same time, it's also trying to say illuminate this tree algorithm that I've used here as like either the self of the divine giving power to this whole algorithm in a manner of speaking. Alright, and drawing attention here, like, look at me, this is what I want, or what I will become, or what I wanted to become. Alright? So with that, thank you all for tuning in, and I will talk to you again next time.